And that's one of the reasons gyms are populated with people that don't seem to get anywhere, because they're making that key mistake. Hi guys, welcome back. A quick video back on the diet and fitness stuff again. And this one, we've had a lot of interest from people that have asked about massively decreasing their calories because they want to start, losing weight really quickly. So they want to hammer in at the extreme end of the diet. And then I've had a few people message say they want to double or triple the training routine because, they want double or triple the results for muscle growth, for example. So firstly, let's talk about the training. So why can't we just train 3 lots of the sessions that I've suggested a week? So I train a 5-day split, as you guys have probably seen, if you've looked at any of the other videos. So basically 5 days of about an hour to an hour and a half max, but I'm generally training for about an hour. Maybe the half an hour is just between sets, and people are like, well, I'll do 15 hours a week because I want to grow muscle really quick. Muscle doesn't grow whilst it's being trained, and muscle doesn't grow whilst you're stressing that part of the body. The way that muscle grows in a very, very simplified form is that when you train it, you're micro tearing the tissue, the muscle tissue in that specific area. So that's why it's important to train really hard, really intensely, to do the sets to failure, etc., just like I've spoken about before, because that's going to create this micro trauma to that area. And it sounds kind of scary, but this is at a micro scale. I'm not talking about pulling muscles or ripping tendons or anything like that. That's, you do not want to do that. That's very serious. But this is the type of thing where I'm talking about the next day you ache, right? And it's a kind of good ache. You're like, oh God, I really overdid it yesterday. You get that kind of ache if you haven't walked anywhere for ages and suddenly you went on a really long hike on a Sunday. Then on the Monday, like your backs of your legs might really ache or something like that. You might want to have a hot bath. That's where you've caused this micro trauma to that area, because suddenly the muscles have had to do some really demanding work and they're not used to it. So with weight training, that's why you get heavier and heavier as you go, if you can, because the muscles get used to the load, and then we want to create more micro trauma. So if they're used to the load, nothing is really going to happen when you train. So then you maybe up the weight, and that will, create that micro trauma again. So it's really a good thing if you sort of next day you're like aching and thinking, God, my chest really aches from yesterday. Great, that means that you're going to inspire some growth. However, there's a caveat to inspiring some growth. If you ache the next day and you think, well, that was good, I really like training chest, it feels, I've done a good job, I'm going to go and do it again. Now, you're going to go and train that again, and you're going to create more trauma in that area. That means that that area is not going to grow all the time it's under that stress and all the time it's working. You grow when you're resting, basically. So if you look at pro bodybuilders, and we don't want to become pro bodybuilders, probably, that's not what this channel's all about, but those guys know a thing or two about growing some muscle. They probably know more than most. They will train really, really intensely, and then they will have an elongated time off. And the reason, and when they have time off, they rest hard. Like, pro bodybuilders are some of the laziest people I've ever met, because they train really intense, they're super hardcore at the gym, and then they're literally horizontal for the rest of the week, with that body part. And as soon as they finish the gym, they go home, they're like laying on the couch, eating loads of protein, they hardly move, because they know that that's a good way to grow muscle. They're sleeping for like 9 or 10 hours a night, because most of this regrowth happens during your sleep. But if you've trained for a second or third time, you're not going to get that. The body's too stressed in that area to actually grow any more tissue, because when it's been micro damaged, a repair, it's flooded with cortisol and all these different catabolic hormones into that area, and repair hormones, etc. And it is a process that happens that over a couple of days, you know, repairs will start to happen. But if you sort of start that process all over again and just keep injuring, you know, that area, even in a microscopic way, you're never going to get that decent muscle growth. And why do we want decent muscle growth? Well, we've spoken about this before. Like I said, it's not about bodybuilding. This is about taking some muscle into our old age with us, because I'm 47, not getting any younger. I want to retain as much muscle as I can into old age and keep training, because there are significant studies showing that there's a correlation, a huge correlation between longevity and muscle retention. So people that retain more muscle tissue and more strength live longer. Why is that, you might ask? Well, think about it. Especially in countries like the UK and the US, where we have a culture of putting old people into care homes. You know, we don't have this sort of Mediterranean culture or Indian culture of having our elders all live in the same house, and, you know, many generations all living together and helping each other out, which is a fantastic way to live, I might add, and we should learn something from that. But what we tend to do is be quite insular with our living, and if you don't retain that strength as you get older, you'll get to a point where you cannot function on a day-to-day basis. You know, you're not even strong enough to get yourself in and out of bed properly, or in and out of the shower, on and off the toilet. What happens then? Well, what happens then is you're either cared for by your family, which happens sometimes, but more often than not, people end up in a care home. And unfortunately, those places are very lonely, and they're not really an ideal place for you to live a long time. I mean, I worked in a couple of them when I was studying, and I was getting a degree in health science, and I was just working in there to make ends meet, doing a bit of maintenance work. And I actually spent most of my time sitting in rooms with old people who were absolutely lonely. As you know, it was absolutely saddening to witness that they were so desperate for human company. And many of those people died, and it was quite a high-end care home, you know. And generally they had their families come like once a month and visit them, but the rest of the time they would only get nurses that came in their rooms for like 15 minutes twice a day. Because if you lose the will to want to live, the body quickly follows, you know. And if you're able to get about, and you can go on little holidays and cruises and really enjoy yourself, which we all should do after working most of our lives, and you've got that joy for life, you know, the body follows on as well. So those people are likely to live much longer than someone that's just sat sedentary staring at a wall in a care home. That's one of the factors. There's probably many others. Certainly falls is a factor. You know, if you're strong and you've got good muscle retention, you're much less likely to have fall related accidents, and they account for a huge amount of elderly people, you know, going into hospital and never coming back out again, because a simple fall for someone who's elderly, especially if they're not in great shape, that can deteriorate real quick, and they can end up with pneumonia, etc. And it all goes downhill from there. They don't come back out. So this is really important. So we want to retain muscle tissue, and the best way to do that is to get your training done and then rest. Like I said, you're not going to double or triple the amount of muscle growth you get by doubling or tripling the amount of training you do. I know that's, you know, adverse to what most people think. Everyone thinks, like everything, well, 1 is good, 2 is doubly as good, 3 is even better. You know, that seems to be right with everything in life, but in particular, it's completely incorrect with this. And I've known many people that tried to do that, and they really thought it would work, and they failed abysmally. And that's one of the reasons gyms are populated with people that don't seem to get anywhere, because they're making that key mistake, is that they go to the gym, they do an all over body workout for like 2 hours every single day, and they think, yeah, I'm going to get somewhere really quick, and they don't, you know. And then the guy that's going in there and doing the splits and resting those body parts for the rest of the week, those other guys are looking at him like, that guy must be on something. No, he's just doing what he should be doing. You know, he's training properly, he's getting the rest, so he's actually growing muscle tissue. Your muscles never have an opportunity to grow. And if muscles grew from working them every day, if you worked on a building site doing hard work, you would be like Arnold Schwarzenegger, wouldn't you? In 6 months, you would be absolutely huge because you're doing hard work to those muscles every day. But guess what? Guys on building sites aren't generally absolutely huge. The guys doing really hard work on building sites are really wiry. They're not, you know, they're strong and they're physically capable and they get the stuff done, but they're not built like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And they would be if that correlated. You know, if you did more work and you got more muscle, that would correlate. The way to do more work is to do absolute intensity on the day that you're training that muscle group. Put the work in then, not repeatedly for the rest of the week on the same muscle group. Okay, next one is diet. So people have been saying, you know, you're suggesting what seems to me like quite high calories. They're saying I would rather you know, go down to like 1500, and that is completely adverse to everything, you know, that I'm about, because I've got a big issue with all those diets that are pushing people towards these extreme measures. That is an extreme measure. The reason it's not 10 times as good is because, and we spoke about this so many times, the body adjusts. So you will get really good results off eating 1500 calories a day. If your maintenance calories are like 2800 and you cut down to 15, you're going to get some serious fat loss. You're going to also need some serious willpower, because that will be horrible and you will be starving hungry, because your brain is sending messages like crazy going eat, 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 because it does not want you to lose that amount of weight that quickly. It doesn't want you to lose any weight, but it will be sending crazy hormone signals around the body, like signaling you to eat. It will make food smell nicer. You know, you'll be craving carbs. You'll be dreaming about burgers. It will be crazy, and it isn't particularly pleasant. You can do it, you know, and why is that not a good idea? Because in about 3 or 4 weeks, the body will just adjust the metabolism. If it can't get you to cheat and it can't get you to eat all this junk that it's sort of sending these signals, it will just adjust metabolism. So your metabolism will slow down quite a bit, and then the weight loss will slow down, because otherwise, you know, that's the reason that happens. Is imagine what would happen many years ago when we didn't have this abundance of food like we do in the UK or the US. But imagine that we were hunter-gatherers, etc., and we would have like an abundance maybe in the spring and summer, and then during the winter you might go through quite long lean spells where you didn't have much food. If the body didn't have any mechanisms in place to kind of regulate metabolism, you would just die. You know, you would just, if you didn't have any food for a week or two, you would just drop dead. So when you start cutting calories really low, the metabolism starts to drop to keep you alive, you know, because the body, we haven't been around long enough in this abundance of food. That's only happened in the last 15 or so years. Previously to that, you know, even my parents' generation had to be very, very careful with food, and there were people that were severely malnourished then. There still are in the world. We're just happy, you know, we're privileged. We live in a really privileged country. So, you know, don't think about that as any other way than our bodies have those adaptations for really good reasons. And you can harness that. So that's why I suggest sticking at higher calories to start with. We're going to start losing body fat, you know, a couple of hundred calories under our maintenance. So for me, that was around 2,500 calories, something like that. Then every 3rd or 4th week, I'm going to drop the calories. Only a couple of hundred. I'm going to try and drop some carbs out generally. And we've talked about that. If you're a subscription member, I've talked some of that in the videos, and I've given a diet on there that breaks it down and how I've reduced the calories for one of the members. You can reduce those calories down a couple of hundred. So in the end, you can be on this highly restricted 1500 calorie diet, but that will be weeks and weeks away. And we want all the weeks leading up to that to get as much fat burning done as possible. And that's the difference between getting, you know, 3 months worth of fat burning versus 3 weeks. The way of stepping down, that's going to give you your 3 months of fat burning, because you can do it in stages. And not only that, you can even break that up further. So you can say, start the cardio at 10 minutes a day when you first start your diet, right? 10 minutes on a stationary bike a day, as well as our weight training, and start the diet at 2,600 calories. In 3 weeks' time, you reduce the calories by 200. In 3 weeks' time again, you up the cardio by 10 minutes, so you doubled your cardio. Now you're doing 20 minutes a day. In 3 weeks' time, you reduce the calories by 200. In 3 weeks' time, you up the cardio by 10 minutes, right? So we're staggering, but we're keeping the body guessing, because every time the body adjusts for that metabolic shift that it's going to do to keep us alive, because it still thinks we're in starvation situation, we're going to make an adjustment to offset that. And you can get a hell of a lot of fat loss out of that. So, and put it in context, I needed about a year of fat loss to get from a 40-inch waist to a 30-inch waist. It was a significant amount of body fat I had to shift, and some people may have even more than that. So you're not going to shift that in a week or 2 weeks. You need to think of this as a really long-term plan. It's not a quick fix. And trying to make it a quick fix, you're going to paint yourself into a corner very, very quickly. And if you start off on the 1,500 calories and your metabolism starts to slow down in 3 or 4 weeks' time, okay, that's fine. You might say, well, I'll carry on through that. Well, that's fine, but you won't be losing much body fat. You'll be miserable. Your diet will absolutely be horrible, because 1,500 calories a day, it's hardly anything. What are you going to do then? You're going to just keep doing that for months and months in the hope that something's going to change. That is a very bad strategy. So I would strongly suggest to think about starting at a reasonable calorific rate, working down. And that's also the reason I throw in cheat meals. Some people say, well, I'm not going to cheat. It's better not to cheat. I throw in cheat meals not just for a psychological reason. So I want something to look forward to at the end of the week, because dieting sucks. And life is difficult. We all have to go to work, and we have these family problems and stuff like that. It's nice to have something to look forward to, and it's nice to have something where you can share that with friends and family and say, I've been good all week. On a Friday, I'm going to have a chill out with my mates or whatever it is, with my wife, and we're going to have a bottle of wine and we're going to have something nice to eat. So there's that part, but then there's also the part of keeping the metabolism guessing. So if I'm on this really strict diet, I can throw in a cheat meal at the end of the week. So I'm never really in starvation mode. My body's always kind of like, oh, well, what was that? That was a burger and chips. I'm not being starved after all. Then I'm back on the diet again the next day. So there's definitely some evidence to show that can actually help keep your metabolism burning, is to have days of much higher calorie intake, and then the rest of the time bring it back to low calorie intake. And there's actually some diet philosophies, like zigzag diet philosophies, that do that. Every day you're basically high low to just keep the metabolism guessing. I don't particularly advocate that for a number of reasons, but it's certainly good to throw in a cheat meal. So don't cheat yourself out of the cheat meal. Don't paint yourself into a corner with a massive calorie deficit to start with. You'll end up miserable. And try not to overdo it in the gym, because the other problem of overdoing it in the gym and doubling or tripling your training is you will get injured, especially if you're our age. If you're in your 40s or 50s and you're trying to do that, and some people have said, yeah, but bodybuilders do it. Pro bodybuilders generally are chemically assisted, so they might get away with it because their recovery is going to be 100 times better than your recovery, because they've got various different things going on that are going to aid them with that. They've got other health problems to do with those things as well. But I'm suggesting that if you're a natural person and you're not taking things like that, and you're just training and you're middle-aged, once a week is enough for that body part. Because don't forget, it's always going to get like a second use. If I train chest like I did today, when I go and train my arms later on in the week, that's going to work a little bit of chest. When I go and train my shoulders, that's going to work some upper chest. So you're not completely eradicating that body part for the rest of the week. It's still going to get some use, and also you've got to live, so you're going to, you're still going to move those muscles around, but we're going to try and rest them as much as possible, and I guarantee you will get a much better growth rate of muscle doing that. Thanks guys, I hope that's been of some help and answered some people's questions. Any comments on that, chuck it down, and we'll have a constructive criticism. I've had to delete a few comments recently because we've had some people being abusive and childish and whatever, just random people that have turned up and just leave stupid stuff. So keep things cool. If you've got a criticism, critique away, but let's do it in an adult fashion, and then we can all talk about it, and you might be able to change people's minds if you put that forward in a constructive manner rather than just abusing someone, and you're not going to change anyone's minds doing that. Take care, have a great evening.